Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Scares That Shaped Us, a podcast about horror writers and the stories that made them. I'm your host, Matthew Jackson. It's the last episode of February. How'd that happen? Feels like January lasted forever. February is over in about 5 minutes. Anyway, we are ending February with a bang. The great Max Booth is here. We're going to talk to Max about their books. We're going to talk about Ghoulish Books, their publishing house that they run here in Texas. We're going to talk about the upcoming Ghoulish Book Festival. We're going to talk about the 1980s kid horror classic, The Gate. It's a lot of fun. And speaking of Ghoulish Book Fest, it is March 14th and 15th in beautiful San Antonio, Texas. I will be there. Max Booth will be there. A lot of other people in the horror community from Texas and way, way, way beyond Texas will be there. You can meet a lot of cool people in the indie horror community, participate in some panels. It's going to be a wild, fun time. Badges are still on sale if you go to ghoulish.rip. That's RIP, ghoulish.rip. They have badges on sale for, I believe, $50. And even if you don't buy a badge, you will be able to stop by their book room where all the presses represented at the festival will have books on sale. So if you're going to be in the San Antonio area, or you can get to the San Antonio area fairly easily that weekend, come out and say hi to everybody. We're going to talk more in the interview with Max about what's in store at Ghoulish Book Fest. I'm looking forward to it. Hope to see you there. If you know me from the show or from the internet, say hi. Also wanted to drop a recommendation on you guys in terms of a book that you can pre-order right now. I am reading The Haunting of Room 904 by Erica T. Worth. Erica is best known as the author of White Horse, which came out a couple years ago. Fantastic debut novel. She has done it again with The Haunting of Room 904. It is a book about a haunted hotel room with a very particular, strange, scary history, and the woman who has to unravel that history and the mysteries behind it in order to save her family, essentially. It's really scary. It moves like a freight train. It's got loads of beautiful, incisive, insightful prose from Erica. It's out March 18th. It may or may not be relevant to future episodes of this very show. So go find The Haunting of Room 904. Hit pre-order on that thing. You're going to want it if you want to keep up with all the great horror novels coming out this year. And there are a lot of them. That does it for the intro this week. Let's head over to our interview with Max Booth. Joining us this week on The Scares That Shaped Us is one of the most important voices in indie horror. They are the author of books like Abnormal Statistics, Maggots Screaming, Touch the Night, The Last Haunt, We Need to Do Something, and last year's I Believe in Mr. Bones. They are also the founder, editor, publisher of Ghoulish Books and the Ghoulish Book Festival, which is coming to you March 14th and 15th in beautiful San Antonio, Texas. Max Booth, welcome to the show.
That's the best promotion anyone's ever given me. People ask me to talk up my stuff. I never come as good as what you just did. Thank you.
Hey, that is what we're here for. You and I have known each other for a while. So like this was when I first started the podcast, and you were one of the people who was like, yeah, you should do it. You should absolutely do it. So this has been a long time coming, this chat.
Yeah, you talked to me about the podcast at the shop.
Yeah, I remember you were very encouraging and said, like, look, one thing you can always count on about authors is they will talk to literally anyone about their books. So do the podcast. And you were right.
Yeah.
It's been a blast so far. I want to start. I mentioned Ghoulish Book Fest, which is, as we're recording this, a little less than a month away. It'll be about 3 weeks away, or 2.5 weeks away when the episode goes up. This is your fourth year of Ghoulish Book Fest, and it's my first year actually getting to come, which I feel like a heel about because I live in Austin and you're in San Antonio and it's right there, but I've always had to do film festival stuff, and I don't have to do that this year, so I get to come to the fest. I'm really excited about it. For listeners who don't know, who may be in the area and want to check this out, what can you tell us about Ghoulish Book Fest? What can people expect?
Yeah, it's a weekend long celebration of spooky stuff. It's not just a convention for creative types. So a lot of book conventions will be mostly advertised and targeted and organized for other like writers, but this isn't really that type of convention. It's more like a celebration of just the genre, and it's a fan convention basically. The panels, most we have some like industry talk panels, but most of the panels are designed to be like just talking about fun stuff related to the genre. Like we in the past we've had panels about just like talking about our favorite Saturday morning cartoons and just like a love of say found footage movies. We talk about movies and books and music and all types of stuff on these panels, but we also have a a bookshop room, a vendors room, and we have vendors from all over, not just this country, but other countries coming to sell books. So like we have little ghost books from Canada. They will flying in. This is the second time they've done this now. They will flying in to have a table. And like how common is it to be able to see a small press from Canada in San Antonio? I mean, it just doesn't happen. We have Alex from Tenebris Press flying in from fucking Romania to do this. So it's like it's really cool to have all these different spooky people in the industry fly out and travel and like sell books to the public. And something else we do that I think is why people seem to come to the fest is so we do have badges for sale, and you need a badge to like see the programming, but the vendors room, which is like the holy grail of the fest, that's free to anyone. So anyone off the street could just come in. It's free to the public. You don't need to spend anything to get in. You just come in and browse and shop and meet awesome people who dedicate their lives to spookiness. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just learned something new about this year. I didn't know Alex was coming. Alex and I have followed each other on social media for a while. It'll be great to meet Alex. But yeah,
Same.
the vending room is, I should also mention, I don't think I mentioned this in the intro. Max and their partner Lori, their wife Lori, run a brick and mortar store in Selma, which is a little town just north of San Antonio, for Ghoulish Books, where they sell everything Ghoulish prints, obviously, but you can get basically any horror book you want. It's an amazing shop. I always spend way too much money when I'm there. And Ghoulish did a book fair at Fantastic Fest in Austin this past fall, where Little Ghosts was also in attendance, weren't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Jason Krofchak, who runs the press with his husband Chris, he had a movie at Fantastic Fest. So they flew him in, and it was like, oh yeah, we should obviously just have you guys table with us too. Jason, just to do a quick like plug with his movie, been a great movie. I don't know if you saw it. It's called it's on Tubi under the title "Don't Mess with Grandma," but the actual title is Superman. Sunset Superman. Great movie. Great
Okay.
movie.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it and I didn't get a chance to see it. It's on Tubi. I'll have to check it out. But um going into, I've never been to the vendor room at Ghoulish, but going into the Ghoulish bookstore and going into that book fair at Fantastic Fest, if you've never done this, you're going to get absolutely assaulted in the best way by a billion different horror options that you've never seen before. And this is what's one of the best things about what Ghoulish does, what Little Ghost does, what Tenebris does. All of these wonderful small horror presses are churning out some of the most singular work in the genre right now. And so for that alone, it's worth coming to the book fest. But if you want to do the rest of it, and I'll be there, I might be on a panel, I might not be on a panel. I don't know. We're gonna find out.
You will
Um,
be.
oh, I will be. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
be on something. I don't know. I don't know yet what I'm gonna be
I'm
on, but
we're in the process right now of going through all like the surveys we sent out and like locking in who's on what, but everyone will have some type of panel that they've asked to be on.
okay. So I'll be
Yeah.
doing something. You can come listen to me babble about whatever. There's gonna be a similar to but legally distinct from the popular game show Taskmaster situation happening at Ghoulish this year.
Yeah,
And
Ghoul
it's
Master.
Ghoul Master, yes.
That's right.
And it's what, $50 for a badge?
That's right. Yeah, $50 for both weekends. Both weekends, both days of the weekend. So
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday. You get a big goodie bag with a bunch of free stuff in it. You get if you come in on Friday at exactly like 10 a.m., you get exclusive shopping before we open to the public at noon too. So like if you want to get something you might a table might sell out on, getting the little rate when we open is definitely a bonus of getting a badge. But yeah, if you just want to shop, you don't need to buy a badge. It's all good.
So yeah, that is Friday, March 14th, Saturday, March 15th, San Antonio, Texas. All of the details, we will link to it in the show notes, but it is on ghoulish.rip. You can look up all the details about the book fest there. And yeah, Max will be there. I'll be there. Alex Woodrow from Tenebris Press will be there. Probably a bunch of other awesome horror people. So come hang out if you're able. We will have a good time. And since we're talking about small presses, I want to segue over to I Believe in Mr. Bones, which is a very, very super fictional story about a person who runs a small indie horror publisher in San Antonio, Texas,
That's right.
who gets a weird manuscript submission that's about a creature named Mr. Bones who can be summoned and then steals all your bones from you and replaces them with fake bones. I'm of course for the most fictional part of that is it's about someone who runs a publishing house. Like the Mr. Bones stuff is 100% factual, right?
Not only that, but we're also planning a book fest in San Antonio.
Yes,
So really fictional. I
it's
mean, it's fiendish books. I mean,
fiendish
it's
books,
who could
totally
come up with
different.
a, yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with me.
It doesn't have real people like Betty Rocksteady and Johnny Compton name dropped in it. It's completely fictional. No, but seriously, I Believe in Mr. Bones is a really, really fun book that Max put out last year, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this for a while, and I was flipping back through it last night. What came first in this? Was it Mr. Bones as like a figure, or was it I want to write a sort of satirical thing about my time as a horror publisher?
Definitely Mystical Bones. In fact, the title came first because I think it just came to my head while listening to the Pixies. They have a song called I Believe in Mystical Grieves, and I don't know, for some reason my brain swapped that with Bones, and I got obsessed with it. It was going to be a different book completely. It was going to be about a dad and a son bonding in the grocery store over like Halloween cereal mascots, and the dad was going to be like, man, back when I was a kid we had this one cereal called Mistral Bones, and I haven't seen that in a long time. And then he was going to like try to track it down when he got home and like not be able to find anything about it. It was really much going to end up being something similar to what I saw on Channel Zero, Candle Cove. Is that the name of the season?
Something like that. Yeah, I believe
Something
so.
like that. So it was a combo of seeing that season and then finding out Carlton Melick has a book also about someone who is trying to recall a forgotten cereal mascot that made me just go, oh, fuck this. I'm not gonna write this now. But the title stuck with my head. And also the premise of that book was gonna be like that cereal mascot was going to begin like haunting the dad and possibly replacing his bones. So that central like thing didn't go away, but the setup and the structure of it I abandoned and kind of forgot about for a while. But at some point, I don't know, I think it was shortly after I was on the Talking Skilled podcast
Mm.
promoting my collection Abnormal Statistics. There's a novella in that book called Indiana Death Song, and it's about this kid who keeps swallowing teeth. And the host of that podcast was asking me like, why teeth? What is so creepy about teeth? And just like without thinking about it, I immediately said it's the only section of the skeleton that you can see. And it was a really creepy thing, like a thought to have. And I couldn't stop thinking about that. And it made me go back to the Mystical Bones idea that I gave up on and how I could recycle that into a different type of book. And I think around the same time, I just thought it would be interesting to write something about running a small press because I have in the past in a book called How to Kidnap Strangers. That's also about a small press, but it's more of a comedic crime thing. And I wrote that a decade ago at this point. So I wanted to kind of return to writing about small presses now that I had a decade extra of experience and see what I had to say about that and all those desires and things I wanted to do just kind of blended together into what became, I believe, in Mystical Bones.
It is such a it's such a you book. I don't know how else to put it. Like if you if you know Max in person, or if you just follow Max online and understand their fixations and interests in particular worldview, and then you go read this book, like they sync up so wonderfully. And I and by the way, shout out to Talking Scared, Neil at Talking Scared, the best horror lit podcast going right now. Uh, I love I love skeletons in
Yeah.
horror. Like I love engaging because it's such a funny thing that we, especially if you hang out with like horror people, spooky people, we all love skeletons. We love little cartoon skeletons. We love putting them in our yards at Halloween. We love having them like as props around the house and messing around with them. And it's us. Like it reminds me of Stephen Wright had a joke, a one-liner once, where he just said, when I was a kid, a teacher told me there was a skeleton inside me, and it freaked me out."
Yeah.
And it's just such a funny thing that we make them so prominent in all of our, like the logo of this show is a skeleton reading a book, but that's like it's a thing that we engage with physically on a daily basis because it is us. And the idea of that part of us slowly being taken away in ways that we can't quite fully perceive at first is just such a wonderful creepy idea. And so yeah, I Believe in Mr. Bones is out now. If you have not picked that book up, go get it. It's Apocalypse Party, right? That
Yeah.
published it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
support Apocalypse Party, another great small press. Read that book. It's fucking wild, and I love it. Um, I also wanted to ask you about, before we get into today's topic. You made a very proactive, conscious, great decision sort of as this shit show of a new administration was coming in, that you were going to start a an anthology of the best trans horror out there. And I've talked about it on this show a few weeks ago. There are trans writers in horror everywhere who are doing some of the most exciting work that you can pick up right now.
Yeah.
And I know that this is something that you still are in the works on, and the table of contents isn't set like or anything like that. But what can you tell us about the response you got to just saying, "I'm going to do it. I'm going to do best trans horror of the year. Let's go."
Yeah, I think I posted about doing it on election day, maybe, because I didn't know what else to do with all the rage and frustration just bursting through my body. And you and I, we live in Central Texas. We live right in the asshole of one of the most evil states on the planet. And I feel like I almost have an obligation as like someone with a physical shop and like a physical presence as a book publishing company to make some type of statement just announcing that like not everybody in the state is okay with this. And also for those who are not okay with this to see that not everybody agrees with your evil, awful thoughts. And also, but not just that, but also just a way to celebrate, as you said, some of the best writing voices that you could find. So yeah, we're doing this anthology. It's a reprint anthology in the same vein as like say Ellen Datlow's, but only written by trans authors. And I know there's some debate about like, is it a safe thing to like have only those who are out as trans in this anthology? And I mean, that is definitely up to each person who sends us something. It's a reprint anthology anyway. It's not like an original anthology asking people to write new things. It's for stories that were already published the previous year. And it's also the entire book is basically a big fuck you to like the government. It's meant to be loud and angry and like, but also, celebrating yourselves and like your own identities. So I do think in this specific case, it makes sense to have only those who do identify as trans, right? Phil, otherwise, I mean, you just have like any other best of anthology, I think. But also, with this book specifically, we'll be partnering up with a local company called Pride Sentinel San Antonio. You can check them out at pridesennelsa.org. It's a great organization benefiting the LGBTQ plus community. I also happen to know the people who run that company love spooky books. They've been to the shop, they buy stuff from us. So it seemed like a no-brainer to like go with them as a local community. We'll be donating 50% of like profits of the anthology to them. So I think that's pretty cool and excited to get to that. It was my hope to launch the anthology, like its release at the Book Fest, but I am still reading submissions for it, and the Book Fest is really soon. So I don't quite think that's going to happen at this point. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think it's going to. I'm trying to, though.
We will hear about it soon enough, and I'll make sure to let our listeners know when that's coming up. Submissions are closed for it, so like if you had something, wait for the second volume to happen down the line and submit then. But I can't wait to find out who you got for this. Like I have some guesses, but I'm not even going to drop names because I don't want anybody to be disappointed, or I don't want any of your secrets to get out yet. So
We
look
got some
for
pretty. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
We got some pretty big names who submitted, so I'm pretty excited about that. I will say if anyone wants to like reserve an early copy, I think you said this is going live on the 26th. Up until the
Yeah.
28th, if you go to ghoulish.lip, that's RIP. We don't do comms anymore. We're doing like a subscription thing for the every book we're publishing in 2025, and that expires on the 28th. So if you want to pre-order that and everything else we're doing in 2025 at a 10% discount, you can just go do that. Do that.
Yes, I should have mentioned that sooner. Um, the subscription
Yeah.
that you can get right now from Ghoulish is going to include yeah, everything in 2025 plus some like fun little Ghoulish. If you've never been to the Ghoulish shop, they always have fun things laying around that you can pick up as merch. Um, I know a book coming up. There's a book called A Feast of Putrid Delights by Valentina Rojas that's in there. There's a book
Yeah.
called Say Uncle by what's the author name on Say.
Ryan C. Bradley.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not read that one yet. I know Mindy was emailing me about it the other day. I got to check it out. But Feast of Putrid Delights is a fantastic sort of culinary horror novella
Yeah.
mixed with a drug trip horror novella. It's so fun. So yeah, support Ghoulish, support small presses. But now we are going to talk about one of the, I think I would safely say one of the most underrated horror films of the 80s. The Gate from 1987, directed by Tibor Takas. and written by Michael Nankin, starring Stephen Dorff, Louis Tripp, and Krista Denton. This is a wild, wild movie, and it's one of those secret handshake movies.
Yeah.
Whenever you talk to someone, have you seen The Gate? Fuck yes, The Gate. So, Max, if you would not mind, since you brought this story to us, giving our listeners a little taste of what The Gate is, and tell us what your experience with it was and why it was something you wanted to bring to the show.
Yeah, I can't think of any other movie that I obsessed with as much as I did with The Gate. I watched that movie nonstop as a kid. I was trying to recall, like, before we began talking today, how I was watching it because we didn't own many movies. I'm pretty sure I just would beg my mom to rent it like on videotape all the time from like Hollywood Video because I, we would go through periods of well, we didn't have the movie, and I would always think, what was that movie with the kids digging a hole? And there was a point in time well, I was obsessed with two movies about a kid digging a hole, and it was The Gate and Frailty. Really, two different
Whoa.
movies. Great movies. I was obsessed with around the same age. One of them really kid friendly, one of them not. We're talking about the kid friendly one today. Uh, the Gate, man. It's the name is appropriate because it's like one of the best gateway movies for kids to the horror genre. It's like it's not as child friendly as say something like The Gremlins, but it's not too extreme that you wouldn't want to show your kid to it. It's like the perfect bridge into something a bit more extreme real like if a kid watches that, there's so many fun monsters in it and just crazy things going on. But there's also a subtle sense that like kids are not safe in this movie, and I just love it so much. I love stop motion, and this movie is just the greatest display of stop motion going on. Thanks to don't have it in front of me, but William Randall Cook, I believe his name is, who did the stop motion, the practical effects on the movie. He's just it's a fan. Like you don't see effects like this now. I hate it so much because it's just like the best shit you could ever imagine seeing.
Yeah, it's Randall William Cook, and he also did the stop motion for the Hellhounds in Ghostbusters, and it's a very similar situation to that in terms of the look of things. But for those who don't know, The Gate is a very simple. This is also one of the things that makes it a great gateway horror movie. It's a very straightforward premise. There's this kid who is home alone. His older sister is taking care of the house. She's convinced their parents that they should go on their 3 day trip that they need to go on, and she can take care of everything. Meanwhile, this kid, whose name is making sure I got it, Glenn. This kid whose name is Glenn. It's an '80s movie, in case you couldn't tell. Uh, and his best friend Terry, making it even more of an '80s movie because there was always somebody named Terry around in the '80s. There's a hole in the backyard where a tree was cut down, and they find this weird geode in the hole and decide to break it open, and in the process gradually discover, and spoilers for a 35-year-old movie, they gradually discover that the hole in the ground beneath the tree is actually a gate to hell, or
Yeah.
some version of hell, some hell dimension, pit, something, and they have to figure out how to close this gate that is wreaking havoc on their lives. And it all takes place in this one suburban house with in the house and the backyard. There's almost nothing in the movie that takes place outside of that house, which is one of the things I love about it. How old were you when you first saw this movie?
I honestly I don't know. I mean it came out in the 80s. I was born in 93 and
Okay.
I just always know this movie was like in my life. So I don't know
Yeah.
what age I was. And with that, I'm like that with a bunch of movies. It's just I have a bunch of older siblings and they will always into this genre as well. So like Fable just playing as I grew up.
This is one of the things that we talk about this a lot on the show, that I didn't have horror movies around me growing up. So it was always
Mhm.
like a special experience if I saw anything spooky. I think I saw The Gate when I was maybe like 28. It was streaming somewhere, and I was looking for a horror movie to watch, and I went, that sounds cool. I'll hit play on this. And it's a great horror movie for kids to start with, but if you're just finding it as an adult and you love like the horror of the 80s, you love that vibe. It is such an 80s movie that one of the ways that they find out that they're on a gate to hell is Terry loves heavy metal music, and he has
Mhm.
this one band that he listens to that based their entire musical direction on an old spell book that has information on all of these demons and how to summon them and how to close, which is the raddest shit in the world. That
A,
he just
a, a band that then all died
all died in a
in a
plane
mysterious
crash,
plane crash after making this spooky album. I love it.
which is
And
its
like,
that's its own movie. Like the idea
yeah,
of like, anyway, go ahead.
on the big rock, the geode thing they find, something I like never picked up on until watching it today is the really adorable young Stephen Jilf. He finds like text on the inside, and he reads it out loud. I didn't like ever pick up on the Evil Dead inspiration, Bill, of like
Yeah,
recanting and like that. I think him reciting the spell is why everything begins happening. It's just really funny. And my
yeah,
stepson was on the couch watching it with me, and just like a few weeks ago, we had I had introduced him to all the Evil Dead movies and the TV show. He loved it. And as soon as he began reading the spell, my stepson was like, "Oh my God, why do they always do this?" It was great.
it is that classic. And one of the things I love so much about this, and I see it. We'll talk a little bit more about like the connections I see to your work as we go, but it is in that family of Gremlins and Goonies and E.T. and the Kids on Bikes movies. You know,
Mhm.
the Amblin-esque is what we call it now, but Kids on Bikes movies, the stuff like, if you love Stranger Things, you need to go watch this movie. It has that vibe.
100%.
But the thing that's so great about it is a lower budget version of that. It's not ET, it's not Gremlins with you know, it's a whole town being taken over by, it's all in this one house. And it's so clear that the production had to give it their all to like set dress this house and make it look, but it looks very normal. It looks like a house like I would have gone over to as a kid to see. Like, I was born in 86, so maybe not quite, but like, you know, growing up in the early 90s, I absolutely went over to this house at some point
Mhm.
and hung out there and knew the kind of people. It has this wonderful sort of grounded element that is so effortless. And then once all the gate stuff starts actually happening, you get into those wonderful Randall William Cook monster designs, and it's just so fun because then it becomes about like a teenage girl and a couple of preteen boys fighting off these weird sort of goblin creatures, like just these,
Yeah.
they're all gray and they have these weird like long faces and pointy ears, and they're not scary. Although I think if I would have seen this movie when I was like 6 years old, it would have scared the shit out of me. It's just so fun. It's so I don't know what else to say about it other than like it's an absolute blast. What about it made you so upset? Like, were you going out in your backyard digging holes trying to find these demons when you were a kid? What got you so obsessed?
So I was thinking about that. I don't, this must be connected, but something a friend and I, well, like, we did a lot as children. We would go into the woods and just dig holes with no like clear objective in mind. We just had a shovel and we didn't know what else to do in life. So we would just go to the woods and dig holes. And had to be connected to this movie somehow, like subconsciously. Um, but beyond that, man, I don't know. I think it was just the fact. I mean, I was home alone a lot as a kid, usually raised by like my brothers or something. Just like there's a lot of that going on in the movie with like what's going on with little Home Alone, and just really loving the creature design. I just even at a young age, I mean, I anything stop motion, I just really thought was great. And those little goblin guys are so cool. They're just really, really cool. And like even I usually don't love dream stuff either, a little bit. In this movie, the dream stuff is really great. You have that dancing dead dog, which is cool. Also now I'm now recalling that I loved this movie as a kid called I think it was called Donnie Brass. No, Deuce is Wild. So this fucking crime movie with Steven Gilf in it. And then I just
Mm-hmm.
thought it was cool. Like, oh wait, this is him as a kid. That's cool. I was in a big Steven Gilf phase as a child, I guess. I don't know what else he was in besides those two movies off the top of my head. But I had Deuce is Wild on VHS. I know that. Haven't thought about that movie in a long time. Have you seen Deuce is Wild?
I think I have at some point. Like I couldn't recount the plot to you or anything, but I'm sure I've seen it. Uh, for
think
for for
I
those who
think
don't
it's
know, uh, Steven Dorff is Deacon Frost in the Blade movie. For horror
oh
fans who are looking
yes,
for, yeah. So that's
that's right.
it's this is Steven Dorff 12 years removed, 12 years earlier than the Blade movie. So if you want to see that, I just love the idea that this started with like a Steven Dorff stan, just like where can I find
Yeah,
more of this guy's work? I'm
that's
8
right.
years old and I love
I
Deuces Wild.
I did love Blade as well. Thinking about it now, I think Deuce is Wild is like a West Side Story riff. Like it's about two street gangs, and one of them is in love with the other someone in the other gang. And there's a lot of fighting, like in The Outsiders, which was a movie I loved around then too. Um, yeah, I think it was just like a love for like street gang movies that then went to The Gate. I don't know.
This thing about going out in the woods to dig holes is a real thing. Like you grew up in Indiana, I grew up in Central Texas, not far from where I live now. I grew up in the country, so yeah, it really was just like, what are we gonna do today? I don't know. Let's go dig. So one of the phenomena, and I'm sure this isn't unique to where I live, but I lived on a country road with a lot of cousins, like three different families of cousins lived on this same road. And so we would go over to each other's houses and play. And no one had a proper sandbox. We didn't have, it wasn't one of those things where like your parents spent money and put like clean sand in a box for you to play with. It was just go over there where the dirt is and play in the dirt. And my cousins had a sort of a dirt pit behind their house where like their dad specifically kept the soil tilled up so that they would have loose dirt. And you go out there with Tonka trucks and play and bulldoze and one day my cousin and I got this idea of like, let's I think we were building a volcano at one point. We tried to do that, but then we were like, can we just make this into a hole? How deep can we get this hole? And so we had shovels and rakes and all whatever else we had, and we're just digging, breaking tree roots. We didn't care. We didn't know what we were breaking. We could have hit an electrical line or a cable under the ground and cut it and not even know what was happening because
You
no
could have
one
hit a
was.
gateway to hell.
We
You
could
don't
hit a
know.
gateway to hell. No one was watching. And then my cousin had the idea to get the garden hose and fill the hole with water. And our aunt got so mad because we had like ruined our clothes. And we were just like, we were playing in the hole. What do you want from us? And it is this thing of kids and holes in the ground are synonymous. And it's not the only movie, like you said, it's not even the only movie that's about this.
Yeah.
There's a
Man,
there's a weird movie that came out a few years ago called Antrim. I don't know if you saw
I don't think
Antrim,
so.
but it's streaming somewhere. It was this indie movie, and the premise is it's sort of a fake. it's sort of a found footage thing where the movie you're watching is this horror movie that was produced in the 70s about a boy and a girl who go out to dig a pit to hell because they think that their dog went to hell, and they want to bring their dead dog back, so they're trying to dig this hole. And the frame story is this movie was made in the 70s and is cursed. So
Okay.
everyone who's watched it has like died in movie theater fires or something like that. And it tells you like, if you watch this movie, we're not responsible for what happens to you. But at its heart, it is just about two kids digging a hole.
That sounds so good. I want to watch that.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
It might still be on Prime Video. If not, it's probably floating around on Tubi or something.
Okay.
Um, but it's called
Antrim.
Antrim colon the deadliest movie ever made. It's really
If
weird.
we could, if we could side note with that, like it, just to quickly bring it back to Mystical Bones,
Yes.
there's a thing that I've noticed that I'm afraid of with like say like a movie that is supposed to be like if you watch it you're gonna be killed. The little song like if you listen to this you're gonna go kill your whole family or something. The promotion of it can never like live up to what like the actual thing is because obviously if you watch this movie you're not going to be cursed, right? And
Yeah.
like the whole thing with Bones that I kept struggling with is about this book that if you read it you kind of go crazy and then you end up summoning something. So like I spent so long just writing and deleting sections of the fake book in the book until finally just giving up and just summarizing it because there's no way to make something like that actually spooky. It's too silly.
It is, which it brings us back to the gate because you have the whole idea of, oh, well, if you want to know the entire lore behind these demons, including how to summon them, if you just wanted to summon them and not have anything happen, other than demons coming out, if you just wanted to party with demons, you just have to read the liner notes of this heavy metal album that presumably was distributed to record shops around the world. Which
Yeah,
is wild. Like the idea that there's some kid somewhere that just read something in that book and is like, yeah, okay, demons, fun. We're
let's
having
do
a
it.
party with demons.
Have you seen the second one, The Gate 2?
I have not seen The Gate 2.
So The Gate 2, um, Glenn, he moves away, but the friend, Chillins, or whatever the hell his name is, he goes back to the house and resummons it because he's hoping to use like satanic magic to help his dad get out of a rut, basically, because he's an
Hmm.
alcoholic. And so he summons. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but like I think he ends up kidnapping one of the tiny golem guys and keeping him as a pet. But then like he realizes it's almost like a genie and like it just does wishes for you. I don't know. So like these kids getting this record, they could be doing some genie stuff, is what I'm trying to say.
They could. Yeah, that's the other. This movie has, in terms of like 80s movies with kids in them, it has everything you could want. It has heavy metal music. It has the teen girl throwing a kind of lackluster party while the parents are gone. It has dead moms, which is a big thing in like 80s movies about kids. Is like that's the thing with Terry is his mom died and his
Mhm.
dad is very distraught over this and kind of lost to him. So Terry spends a lot of time over at Glenn's house, and that's how they get into this trouble. But Terry also has the best line in the movie, which is just when he goes home, he reads all this stuff in his heavy metal album, and he comes back and he tells Glenn, "I think I know what the problem is. You got demons." Just
So good. As if you have chill nights or something. Yeah,
yeah.
you got demons.
Oh man,
Uh
you got silverfish. You're gonna have to you got to get those out. They'll eat all the books. You got to get them. You got demons, man. It's
oh, it's definitely the best line. Second best line, possibly suck my nose until my head caves in. I've been thinking about that all day. I've never felt anyone say that before. But I'm
yeah.
gonna, yeah.
It's that's oh it also has like uh Glenn's older sister is named Al, and she is very much a tom. We get the sense that she sort of was more of a tomboy type and now she's getting older and wants to be more of a girly girl and wants to hang out with her friends and throw parties and attract boys and all that stuff. And so that creates a rift between Al and Glenn, which is kind of the emotional arc of the movie. It's about like my older sibling is growing up and they don't get me anymore and I don't get them anymore, and that's sad. Um, but you know, her shitty friends come over and make fun of Glenn, uh, and Glenn comes right back at them with "suck my nose till my head caves in," which I would love to talk to anyone who made the movie about that line and whether or not it was just like, did they just ask the kids like, well, what would you say if you were having an argument right now? What would, because the other stuff they say is more like, you know, he says drop dead at one point and he says a few other things, but they all sort of make sense. And he just suck my nose till
Lots
my head
of
gives in.
lots of classic 1980s homophobic slurs in this
Oh
movie.
yes, you get the
Heads up.
homophobic. You get, yeah, that is another classic '80s movie thing. You get the homophobic slur and the autism slur in
Mhm.
the same movie, but it was made in 1987, so you know
But
it
you
is
also get a kid calling a desperate boyfriend level boy,
Lover Boy.
which is so like little brother teasing sister's love interest. Like it's just like that's exactly what he would have said. What do you
Yes,
know, level boy?
Lover Boy.
I'm gonna call someone at the drive-through that. Then get arrested. I don't think you can call someone at the drive-through level boy. It's a Phil's thing
Try
that
it.
came to mind. I don't know. Maybe I'm hungry. Um, man, I watched this on DVD. The DVD on the front cover is listed as the monstrous special edition. I don't know why. I don't know what that means, but it has a few cool like behind the scenes stuff on it. And I was watching a whole thing with the guy who wrote the movie,
Mm,
Michael Nankin, I think his name is.
yeah.
So he wrote the movie intending on directing it himself. He had just come out of like a really bad project that he was supposed to direct, and last minute thing, the funding didn't go through, so he couldn't make it. He had spent all his money in New York City trying to get this made. He had to move back in with his parents, and he was super depressed. So he decided to write basically like the darkest thing he could think of, and that was what ended up becoming The Gate. But the movie he wrote is not what was eventually made. The movie he wrote was not intended for children, despite the fact that it's about children. I guess a lot of people die in the original screenplay. They had the demons coming out and like spreading through the neighborhood and just dragging neighbors out and fucking killing them in the streets. Sounds really cool. Wish I could have seen that version. But eventually the I guess producers got in the way and they were like, hey, we don't know who to sell this to. We got to make it more kid friendly. And that's what it came down to. Frustrating, but maybe feel the best is something else that happened. He was supposed to direct this, and the original producer who he sold the rights to was all in on him directing it. But then that producer sold it to a company in Canada, and they were like, "Good news, Michael Nankin, we will making this movie. Bad news, you will not directing it now." So like that had to have been like a bruise to the ego. I mean, the movie that ended up getting made, who knows what it would have looked like, you know? I mean, probably something much more twisted, but I love the movie that we got. I mean, it's shot fantastically. If you look up the careers of the guy who directed this and also the guy who wrote it, I haven't seen a lot of the other things they've made. A lot of Lifetime movies recently on both of the lands. But the guy who directed it, I think his name is Titus, but I might be wrong. Do you
T-
have it?
Tibor Takis is his
Okay.
name. Yeah,
He
he is
he made a movie
Hungarian.
he made a movie called I Madman.
Mm,
I comma Madman. Really fun movie. Not as fun as The Gate, but pretty fun. It's about this lady who works at a bookshop, and some inspiration for Mr. Bones, she becomes obsessed with a book that she finds at the bookshop. Um, and she'd be like, all these people keep dying around her life, and like the killings mimic the killings in the book. Pretty fun.
Tibor Takas, for the listeners who want some really different stuff, also directed the TV movie Sabrina the Teenage Witch, starring Melissa Joan Hart, which later became the TV series. Michael Nankin, as a director, where you might have seen his name pop up the most, is he worked on the 2000s Battlestar Galactica show. So they've both been around, but this brings me back to what I was getting at before, that I love about this movie is it's sort of it's I don't want to say it's dirtbag ET, because that sells it short. It is definitely sort of crummy looking, and
Yeah.
in ways that I like. It's not like an idealized version of kid life. It is much more of a scrappy, rough and tumble, this is all going to go wrong in myriad ways. Like at one point, I just remembered this scene. When his sister is having a party, the kids are like, "We're gonna play light as a feather.
Hmm.
We're gonna do the levitation trick that you do when you have parties." And they do it with Glenn, and Glenn like literally floats. Like he goes up to the ceiling and he breaks a light, and then grabs onto another light fixture and tumbles down. He should have like been electrocuted, but he's not. It's just such a like kids getting dirty and getting hurt movie.
Hmm.
Um, and I love that about it. In thinking about it in relation to like what you do and your work, I definitely thought about We Need to Do Something as a similar sort of single location take on American suburbia gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But I also, of course, like I had to, of course, I thought about Maggot Screaming, which is all built on, hey, what if you dig a hole and something's down there that you didn't expect was down there? Is any of that? Do you feel like any of that is conscious influence from the gate, or is it just all stuff that's been floating around in your head for 20 years?
Man, it must be. Especially with Maggot screaming. I mean, I can't recall at this point what I was thinking. But I must have had it in my head, like, yeah, this is like shades of the gate with them digging this hole and finding something. And that the inspiration filled back at screaming to bring back my stepson into this. We were digging up an old building, and I like to just spook him out sometimes, like to creep him out. So I kept like asking him, like, what if we find a body in this ground? And then I was like, what if the body was you? And he did not like that whatsoever. The premise of Maggot Screaming is a dad and son find bodies that are identical to themselves in the ground. Um, no gateway to hell, unfortunately. You mentioned E.T. a few times, and it reminded me of one of the funniest tweets I've ever seen, which was something like, I'll tell you one thing, if my friends and I found ET, we would have killed him with handles. That's what this movie is. That's what The Gate is.
That is what this movie is, which is yeah, I love that. I love that tweet too. I have no memory of who posted it or when. It just, yeah, it's absolutely that kind of movie.
Mhm.
Which isn't to say that it's like awful in a way that's like too dark for your kids. It is darker than ET for sure. It's darker than, I don't know if it's darker than Gremlins, because Gremlins does have that the whole scene where Phoebe Cates tells the story that her dad died trying to be Santa Claus and got stuck
Oh
in their
yeah.
chimney, which is
That's how I'm gonna
still,
die.
that's one of those things. We're not, I know this isn't the Gremlins podcast, but no matter how many times you see Gremlins and you always think of Gremlins as like, oh, it's this fun holiday creature feature movie, then you get to that scene and you go,
Yeah.
oh shit, that's right, this is that movie. But it has that sort of spirit of like, monsters aren't going to come into my house. I'm going to fight
Mhm.
these monsters, and I'm going to consult the heavy metal sacred texts and find a way to beat back the darkness, which it also does in another classic 80s thing that I just remembered, which is model rockets.
I don't know this.
This is, well, I mean,
Oh, I thought you
in,
meant a title of a movie was
no,
Model
no, no,
Rocket.
no, no, no.
Okay.
The plot of the gate relies on model
Yeah.
rockets to an extent, which was a thing I grew up with. My dad was really into model rockets, and we used to go out. I grew up on a cattle ranch, so there was just a pasture across from our house, and we would go out in the pasture and shoot rockets off. And the little parachute pops out and floats down at the end, and you get to catch it, and it's fun. Um, yeah, this is a movie where a kid fights a demon king with a model rocket, which is so fun and ridiculous. And the way the movie works as just like a perfect encapsulation of the chaos of that particular period of a kid's life. Just
Yeah.
the first sort of mom and dad are gone, we are alone and left to our own devices. Everything's going to go absolutely haywire. Like you said, it's a Home Alone movie. It is that kind
Mhm.
of, what do you do when the kids are left alone to play? Well, sometimes a gateway to hell opens in the backyard, and you got to find a way to close that shit before mom and dad get home.
If if they made the gate today, what would be the toy that they would use to defeat the demon at the end? What's the toy now? Fucking Beyblade? I don't know.
Beyblade. There's Gosh, that's a good question. I feel like my son is almost 2, so he doesn't have any of these toys yet that cut people up. I have a nephew who is really
just the, just he doesn't have one of the toys that cut people up. It's a great
that
sentence.
could cut people up. Let me put it that way. Um, my nephew is like really into toy farm implements. Because he lives on said cattle ranch where I grew up. That's where he lives. My
Okay.
my 4-year-old nephew. So he loves tractors and plows and all that stuff. So like I almost picture a kid driving an RC powered tractor in down a demon's throat or something. But that's like a 4-year-old. I don't have the. How old is your stepson?
He is 16. So,
Okay. See, you'd have to ask him. I don't have the
yeah.
faintest clue. I don't have the faintest clue what like a 12-year-old plays with at this point. Like that.
Do they play with toys now?
Yeah, this
Maybe
this was
not.
my thing. Is I was thinking like maybe they like throw a Nintendo Switch controller at the demon, and then the demon just
Dude,
laughs at them. And
they download a fucking exorcism app on the phone.
all right,
If
everybody
that's
else
a good idea, let's not
everybody
reveal
else
this.
stop listening. Max and I are gonna break story on a screenplay that we're gonna send to the world. Nobody listen to this part. No, it would be something like that. The problem with that is whenever people think about, and this is my own, like, I've written stuff like this where technology intersects with horror, and the problem with it's similar to like what you said with Mr. Bones, and like trying to write the cursed book.
Mhm.
Is anytime you say like, oh, this is an app, or oh, it's a streaming service, or oh,
Yeah.
it's a video on YouTube, you run that risk of like, well, that's just dumb. Why would anyone
Yeah.
even have that? You'd have to like think about it very carefully, but it could be done. It could be done. You could
Could be
get
done.
the gate done today.
I
Um,
say forget the movie. Let's launch this app. We could make some money.
the Exorcism app,
Be gone, demon, be gone.
the Hellgate closing app.
Yeah.
It used to be you had to do a whole big battle, and Buffy had to be there, and but not anymore. You don't need a Slayer. You can just download our app.
It's an app.
We're gonna hello sharks. I'm
And it's gonna have to be like those annoying game apps, right? Where like halfway through you have to begin paying for extra things. Like, oh, you want Holy Waddle to be in this app? Oh, that's like $5. I'm sorry.
you complete this puzzle game, match 5 tombstones in a row, and
Mhm.
then you win the puzzle game, and then you get a chance to compete for crucifixes, and if you collect 20 crucifixes, you get one Malleus Maleficarum, and if you get 5 Malleus Maleficarums, then you get the holy water. But
But
the holy water was blessed by priests that we found online, so we can't vouch for exactly how effective it is.
When you
We
to the children, if you even need the app, you have to scan it over to possessed, and it'll in flashing text, you got demons.
You got
So
demons. You
yeah.
got demons. You have to take a picture and hopefully you get the QR code. Uh anyway, it's all very complicated, but we're gonna put our heads together and go to Silicon Valley and see,
I'm
unless they're
imagining I'm imagining the logo of the movie Demoni, but you take the eye up front. Now it's Eye Demon.
I demon.
Pretty good, pretty good.
This is why I wanted to have Max on the show, everybody, because I knew that we would just
I'm
tear
always
off
pitching
into some.
apps.
Yeah, this is
I'm always pitching apps. That's the thing about me.
Max is Ghoulish could be like a much bigger company, but Max is still looking for that perfect app that's
Yeah,
gonna.
I'm obsessed. I'm trying to fill it up with a Steven Drill with fill an app, but he will not respond to my emails.
Steven Dorff, hey, everybody, listen. Everybody pitching apps on TV right now. It's the hottest thing. Chris Pratt is on TV pitching the Monopoly app. All the biggest stars are doing apps right now. Steven Dorff, we got you. We got your dream app. It's right here. You thought it was going to be a Blade app. You thought it was going to be vampire themed. No, go back to your roots, baby. Demons is where the app is at. Circling back around a second to the actual plot of the movie, The Gate. Um, I'm curious because we've talked about it now in relation to Mr. Bones and Maggot Screaming, and we need to do something. Do you see, like, going back and rewatching this movie, do you see threads of it in some of your other work? Do you see like your own? I know you and I both have a thing with cryptids, and these aren't really cryptids, but it's such an unorthodox sort of view of what demons are like and how they behave that I almost wonder if that carried over into all your
Ah,
stuff.
maybe a little bit into Touch the Night because it's about demons. Like watching The Gate, I couldn't even think of them as like demons. I just only thought of them as Deadites, which yeah, it's a demon, but like they almost have the same rules, which is no rules. Like any they both have a similar thing, but like the worst possible scenario that the kill might imagine could happen is what happens, and they could just reshape to go with those rules of like fucking existence. Like these monstrels, they just do anything. It's really like dream logic-y, and I do quite like that. Even if I don't love dream sequences, I do love when dreams come into reality in that specific way. Um, yeah, to answer the question, a little bit Touch the Night because it's about demons, little deadites. But it doesn't have the same vibes, I don't think. Beyond it being about two best friends who are about the same age as the kids in the gate, hanging out and fucking around. So there's some of that, but it's also just like based on things I did as a kid too, which is hanging around with and fucking around.
Yeah, it definitely that is the thing that I think I cherish most about this movie is it is absolutely captures that vibe of like if you had a friend come over to your house all the time when you were a kid and you didn't really have a direction that your day was going to go, you were just kind of seeing what happened. This is that kind of movie. I think that there's a certain type of genre fan who would want to nitpick every little bit of the lore here, but one of the fun things about it, like there's a point where they're realizing that they have to counter darkness with light, so they realize they should read a verse from the Bible. And one
Any
of the kids,
feels anything.
yeah, yeah, and well, one of the kids goes, "Oh, I have the perfect one. You should read this one." But then all hell breaks loose, and they
Mhm.
lose track of what they were doing. And at one point, they're like, "Read from the Bible," and he's like, "What? What do I read? What for? Literally anything. Just read from the Bible, and we'll figure it out as we go." It's a very very fun approach to this kind of thing, and I don't know what else I can do to talk it up, but if you still haven't seen The Gate by the end of this podcast, you need to make it a priority in your life, and you also need to make it a priority in your life to download our app, which is coming soon to
I
the
demon.
iDemon is coming soon to the app stores. Um, we promise no generative AI. Elon Musk will not touch it. We might use it on Elon Musk. How's that?
Yeah, what do you do? Like, he reveals it as well. Like, once you take the demon out, it must go into the app.
It's
Can
got to
you
go
then?
somewhere.
Yeah, it's like that movie. I haven't thought about this movie in a long time. Oh fuck, I can't think of the title. It's with Jack Black and Ben Stiller, I think. They invent a spray that makes dog poop disappear. They call the spray Vaporize. I
Right.
can't think of the name of the movie, but they become rich as hell with this invention. But then it backfires in the second half because people begin protesting outside the house, demanding to know where the poop goes. It's like, Bill does the shit go, Bill does the shit go, and they have no idea. It's like that could happen to us with the iDemon app. What the hell is that movie called? I don't know.
Envy. I just looked it up. It's called Envy.
Thank you.
Um, yeah. Well, no, the demons go into a storage facility, a carefully constructed storage facility that we have built underneath a fire station in New York City. And as long as no like rogue EPA agents come and try to shut us down and unleash all the demons again, we're gonna be fine. It's all, if we can keep the bureaucrats out of there, we're
Legit,
gonna.
if this was a movie or a book, the twist would be like, oh, we kidnapped this one guy and we just keep putting all the demons in him. And now, oh shit, he's escaped.
Shit.
It's pretty
Jeff got out of his room, everybody.
fucking Glenn. God.
Fucking Glenn.
We kidnapped Steven Turtle. That's why he hasn't been in anything since True Detective.
Our guest has been Max Booth. This was as anarchic and fun as I hoped it would be. Ghoulish Book Fest happening in San Antonio, March 4th, 14th, and 15th. You can expect more of this. We will be there. We're going to get iDemon t-shirts made, and we will be there pitching this to everybody. Max, before we let you go, can you let everyone know where to find you online?
I'm mostly on Blue Sky at Fuck Max Booth. Ghoulish has a presence most places besides Musksville. Um, on Instagram it's Ghoulish Bookstore. You can just go to the website, ghoulish.lip. That's rip.com.
All right. Our guest has been Max Booth. Max, thanks for being on the show. So much fun talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks once again to Max Booth for being on the show this week. I have known Max for a long time. It's always fun to talk to them. It was especially fun to talk to them about The Gate and exorcism apps, which we may or may not be developing now. If you want to know more about everything Max has going on, from their books to the stuff they're publishing to their physical bookstore here in Texas to the upcoming Ghoulish Book Fest, go to ghoulish.rip and you'll find everything you need to know. If you want to find out about everything that we are doing, the best way to do that is to follow us on socials. We are mostly on Blue Sky right now at scareshapedus.bsky.social. We're also on Twitter at scareshapedus. We're the Scares That Shaped Us on Facebook. We're the Scares That Shaped Us on YouTube. We also have a website, thescaresthatshapedus.com, where you can find an archive of all of our episodes, or at least you can whenever I remember to update it. The website also has links to all of our socials, as well as an email address, which is scaresthatshapedus@gmail.com. If you want to drop me a line about anything that's on your mind, always happy to hear from y'all. We will be back next week, March 5th, with a brand new episode and a great guest. Cynthia Pelayo will be here to talk about her new book, Vanishing Daughters, and to take a deep dive into one of the most influential short stories of the 20th century, Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. Again, that is March 5th. The episode will drop at noon Central. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I'm Matthew Jackson, and this is The Scares That Shaped Us.